Okay, so Swiss stage predictions for the Salt Lake City Major. I'm sorry, I should have got this out earlier. I had thought that there would be a break day between phase one and phase two, which is the Swiss stage, and there isn't. It starts in like 10 hours. So I ended up streaming some Devil May Cry right after phase one ended, thinking I'd have a bit of a break and then be able to make the video uh, tomorrow, but I checked just to make sure, and the matches, like I said, start in like 10 hours from now. So I have to get this out in time because I almost trolled myself and anyone who watches these. So today we're going to be using the projectprisma.org bracket simulator to help predict the games because we have to predict the entirety of the Swiss stage. Right now, you can't predict day by day. So you have to predict all the team. You have to predict the 8 teams that are going to make it out, and then if you get them in the right bracket, you get an extra point. Um, and also briefly to follow up on the phase one, should have got 6 points, yeah, because we got Shopify Falcons correctly and also in the right bracket, and we got Los and Enterprise correct to make it through, but they Enterprise ended up beating Los. Um, so shout out Enterprise. It was nice to see that result. That's for sure. We got all the teams right that got out. So yeah, ended up just being swapped between Los and Enterprise because Enterprise won their matchup. So yeah. Anyways, let's just work from the top down, and we'll go from round one to five. So round one, uh, game one, Weibo versus All Gamers. Definitely taking Weibo for this one. We just really haven't seen much of All Gamers. They are definitely like statistically the best Chinese team, um, but I think Weibo are like also they're a pretty consistent, top 10, top 8 team in the world team, and they're kind of a sneaky team depending on matchups they get. They can definitely make the like the quarters. And then 5 years is phase again. 5 years is just a completely untested team on international um, events. It is a best of one, which I do think favors 5 years a bit actually, but it's just like you can't really pick against phase um, against a brand new team um, to land. So Najita versus DZ. This is the first for me, much more difficult one. But I am gonna stick with G2 here. They have just looked super hot recently. And even though DZ have looked really good, they've shown a bit of struggles, uh, especially even in their own region where they almost didn't make the major. They had a very close game to qualify to the major. So I'm going to just stick with G2 for this one. Twisted Minds versus Furia. This is another really hard one I think as well, especially for best of one. Um, because Twisted Minds are, I think they're a very like dark horse team for this event. I think they're very slept on, and they can definitely go on a run. But Furia look really good as well right now, even though with the roster rehaul they have all their players are really good, and in stage one it was like practically flawless for them. So or kickoff, not stage one, I guess. But yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with Furia for this one. Next we have Falcons with Wildcard. Wildcard ended up beating Falcons at SI, but that was Falcons with Shaiko. Um, and they're also without Adrian. Now they have Hot and Cold, which is definitely interesting, right? Because for Wildcard, having Hot and Cold means you don't really have to put Spiker on the shields. Like maybe Spiker could be like a secondary shield player now, but having Hot and Cold for them is nice. They might not have lost a bit of the firepower ability, but I don't think that'll be as big of a problem, and it could end up working out nicely for Wildcard. Um, but we'll see. And then we have Falcons who they went 2-0 in phase one. And I think they're also like, I don't, they're not slept on, but they're like, I feel like a lot of people are favoring G2 or Falcons right now, which I think the matchup is a lot closer than you would think, especially because G2 and Falcons didn't play each other in a best of three at all this this year. So we don't really know what that matchup looks like between G2 or Falcons. And for a best of one, I mean, this is really map dependent, especially the best of ones um, as well. And then NIP versus Enterprise. I think we just have to stick with NIP here. I think the changes they made have been looking good for them, and they don't seem to be completely relying on fantasy and hates to carry the load anymore. So that's good for them. But we'll see if they're still shaky. They have yet to get a true test at the big international tournament to see if this team is still like really shaky. Now Cyclops versus Los. I think this is another hard one because I honestly think there's a decent chance that Cyclops can win it, and honestly, it might be a better chance than Los. And I think it really depends on if Perez has a good game or not, because the rest of their roster, it's like, all right, Dash is cool, um, Dark Eyes is cool, Nuxka. Honestly, I don't really rate him very highly. He's been kind of disappointing the past year or two for teams he's been on. So honestly, I'm gonna go with the Keg gamble for this matchup. And then for Virtus Pro versus Shopify, I know Shopify people have, and including myself, I haven't been rating them as highly recently, but I think Virtus Pro, if they haven't changed things, they're very the style they play where it's like very the pushes are good, but they're very telegraphed, and if a team can recognize that, um, it can be easily punished. And I think the NA teams are really good at doing something like that. So I think I'm going to take Shopify to win that matchup. Um, then what do we have? Weibo versus Kag. Um, what happens if Los wins? Do Weibo play face? Okay, so that's a big difference. Big difference. Fuck it, we're going Kag, bro. I don't care. Oh, and if Kag win, G2 play FaZe. If FaZe and G2 win their games, okay. So yeah, Weibo for this for sure. G2 FaZe. I'm thinking G2. Then what do we have? We got Furia, Falcons. Like I think okay, I should probably talk about this one a little more. G2 FaZe. Very close matchup again, of course. But I'm just gonna take G2. It just looks a bit better for them right now. And then same with Falcons Furia. I think Falcon or Furia have just looked in their recent games in SAL. They looked a bit better than Falcons. And NIP versus SR. I think I also take NIP here. The SR really struggle against Brazilian teams. Don't often beat them. Now 5 versus is Dark Zero. In a best of one, I honestly think I'd take 5 Fears here. Twisted Minds versus Wild Card. Honestly, I think I go Twisted Minds here. I think they're very like chaotic playstyle is going to be really good against like a lot of the NA teams. VP versus Enterprise, VP, and then Los versus All Gamers. I'm sorry, all gamers. As much as I want to believe in you, again, you're just a team I know nothing about, basically. So, besides the fact that they are the best team out of the Chinese teams, and I think they're definitely better than the other three that have already been eliminated. So, by a good margin as well. And if we get Fury versus NIP, definitely taking Fury to win that because they already won that matchup in the Brazil League, and then G2 versus Weibo. Um, I'm gonna take G2 for that. And also keep in mind when you get to the promotion or the elimination games, they are best of threes. Um, so whereas these 1-1 games are still BO1s, and then for round 4 and round 5, these are all BO3s. So yeah. And then Cyclops versus VP. Go with VP. FaZe versus low, so FaZe. SR versus 5 Fears. Oh. And in a best of 1. Honestly, in the best of 1s, I take 5 Fears again. And then Twisted Minds versus Falcons. Twisted Minds actually beat Falcons in the EU League. Now, Falcons could learn from that and beat them again this time. But I think I'm actually going to stick with Twisted Minds here. I think Falcons go through, but they go through 3-2. And then Wildcard versus All Gamers, Wildcard, and then DZ versus EP, DZ. And then for FaZe versus VP, FaZe usually always had beaten Virtus Pro in the past. Now it's a different team, different identity, new playstyle, but I still think FaZe are just better than VP. And then NIP versus Twisted in the BO3. I think I take NIP for that one. And then Weibo versus 5 Fears. I think I'm going to go Weibo to beat 5 Fears. And then Falcons. And then honestly, I'd probably trust Wildcard more than Shopify, especially in an NA matchup. And then DZ versus KEG. And then for the last matchups, these are all difficult. I think I'm gonna go with Falcons against DZ and VP Twisted. These are so hard. This is the EU. Well, they're not an EU team, but interregional matchups, both of them. So it's really hard, especially. I need to check these head-to-heads. All right, wild card. Head-to-head. 5. And they're a new team, so I don't really have to date. Okay, so they got 2-0'd. 7-5, 7-5. Both close games, but it was 2-0. Honestly, we'll go with the 5 Fears to make it through to the playoffs, so why not? And then VP versus Virtus Pro versus Twisted Minds. Twisted Minds. Okay. And Twisted Minds won that. Oh, but this is the old VP roster, so we can't go off that. So I think for this game, I think I want to go with Twisted Minds in a really close game. I think Twisted Minds are definitely like one of my sleeper teams to make the playoffs here. So yeah, I think I'm happy with that. And then I'm just gonna now we just input the teams in the predictions page. Okay, we have G2, Furia, FaZe, NIP, Weibo. We had 5 years. Twisted Minds. And what was the Falcons? All right, cool. So definitely, again, it's just so hard to predict. There's so many competitive teams here. It's not. I don't think this is as a competitive major as Munich, but it's still going to be insanely competitive, especially when we get to like round 3 here. We start getting these BO3s. It's going to get brutal. So again, make sure you're logged in on the website, and then once you put all your picks in, save your predictions. And of course, these are my personal predictions. I also encourage, though, just hop on here and make your own real quick, because I think that's just the best way to do it. So go with what you think. Because it's honestly like these Swiss brackets are just so unpredictable. I don't. It's technically possible to get every prediction right, but it is extremely hard. So yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anyone go 8 for 8. Maybe like 8 for 8 and then qualifies, but in the correct spots, nope, never seen anyone do that. So yeah, these are gonna be my predictions for the Swiss stage of Salt Lake City Major, and then when playoffs start on the predictions start on the 13th, we'll be doing predictions for those based on what teams come out of the Swiss. So yeah, again, if you made it to the end, thank you for watching and have a good one.